I just think that people need to humanize the negotiating process a bit more. You guys, people will come back and work with you time and time again if your approach is coming from just more humanity. Hey kids, welcome back. I'm super excited to have you here. We are in the holiday season, like in the thick of it. We are busy. Are you guys busy? I've heard both extremes. I've heard some people are swamped and it's like that typical Q4. I've heard other people say, where is everything? Like, where's everybody? Like, I'm messaging people and someone was telling me today, she's like, I'm trying to pitch a bunch of clients to people. I've reached out and everyone's telling me, oh, I've got like 10 days of PTO that like I got to take this year or else I'm going to lose it. So peace, I'm on vacation. And it's like one extreme or the other. But I do find that every year. So whatever side of the equation you're on, you're not alone. Today's episode is going to be an interesting one. It is a solo episode about negotiating. So there's truly an art to it. It's something that I have enjoyed for such a long time. And I like to think of every negotiation as its own unique puzzle. So stick around. I hope you enjoy this episode and let's get into it. This show is sponsored by Women in Influencer Marketing, better known as WIM, the best online community for the creator economy. You will meet fellow influencer marketers, you'll meet brands, you'll meet talent agencies to talk shop, get hired, and even find a mentor. When you become a member, do not forget to check out all of our incredible resources. For example, we have dozens of masterclasses from the top voices at TikTok, at YouTube, award-winning agencies, and women who are paving the way for us all. So if you want the chance to network with a who's who in influencer marketing, check out what it takes to become a member. Make more money and have fun doing it. Visit iamwim.com/join. That's iamwim.com/join today. And I so look forward to seeing you more around the community. All right, guys. So first tip for, negotiating, and like, this isn't really like a how-to video. It's just things that have worked for me and things to think about when you're negotiating. But first thing to think about when you're negotiating is like, do you enjoy negotiating? Because I gotta tell you, like, there's some people that like just don't enjoy it at all whatsoever. They're like either much more creative or, much more like big picture. And so I think that that's valid to always like stop and reflect to say like, is this something that I enjoy or is this something that I don't? Because I don't think it's possible to be good at something that you don't really enjoy. So if you are someone who enjoys negotiating, welcome to the club. Love negotiating as well. I think that we are negotiating all the time in our lives in a million different ways. And so that's great because you can practice. You can practice in your home life. You can practice with your friends. But of course, like the World Series of negotiating is when you're negotiating a huge deal and you want to make sure you do right by your client. So what can you do? How do you improve your position? And we're going to get into it today. So the first thing I always like to tell people, and keep in mind, I coach a lot of talent managers, and this is something that comes up pretty often, is like, how do you negotiate better? So, one thing that I always want to emphasize is there are so many variables that can be negotiated. I think too often people fall into the trap of, well, we're negotiating the fee, and like the fee is the most important thing. And like, it's one of the more important things, but there are so many knobs and levers and things that you can change and alter and manipulate, and a little bit of this and a little less of that can change the deal entirely. So I would just encourage you, for example, if you're negotiating an influencer brand partnership and you have, the information on the deliverables, you have the information on the exclusivity, keep in mind, even with the deliverables and even with the exclusivity, just two aspects of all of the aspects of the entirety of the agreement, even just with those two, there are multiple things that you can adjust and look at and negotiate about. So for example, when it comes to the deliverables, let's say, it's a YouTube video. Well, How long is the video? Is it a dedicated video or non-dedicated video? Are they requiring that you are using the product, or can you just like talk about like gifting the product? There's so many different aspects and things that you can utilize. If the content is on Instagram, for example, like could we explore doing a carousel post versus reels? Because for me, like creating photo content or my creator, creating photo content can be infinitely less time consuming than creating a reel. So there's so many things that you can negotiate and play around with that I think can be infinitely helpful. Another thing that you can negotiate in terms of content is the quantity of content because your client, if your client is a creator, might be much more interested in working with a brand and maybe charging less per deliverable if there are more deliverables. So people I think they fall into the trap and get stuck in their ways of just negotiating what's in front of you, what's presented to you. And I guess like the first piece of advice that I would give is to like think beyond what's presented to you. Is there a way that I can upsell? Is there a way that I can build this into something else? Because, if I'm presented with one YouTube video at X price, take it or leave it, I would probably come back and say, well, I can't do that, but how about this instead? And, maybe it's 3 or 4 YouTube videos and it's like less per video, but if they're committing to more videos, it's a better scenario and usually a win-win for everybody. There's more of okay, why? Let me go into and elaborate on that, right? Like, part of the story that I like to tell is that, the creators, especially in video content, need more time and can really benefit from having more time to expand upon all of the different use cases and the affinity towards that product. Creators have said this for years. If it's like a one-off, partnership where you're posting one and done about why you like this product, it very rarely ever resonates with people and really even more rarely gets them to convert to purchase the product or becoming a customer. But if you post about them, maybe once a month and, you share a little bit of why you like it in this video and a little bit of why you like it differently in that video, then you build that use case and you build that story. And I think the stories are the most interesting and creators need the opportunity to do that. They need the space to do it. So giving them incentives of why you should upsell and why they should purchase more from you by giving them a better deal, always, always a good thing. When it comes to exclusivity, oh my gosh, there's so much to negotiate for exclusivity. So, I think that most people are focused on the length of the exclusivity, but the category or the product that they're exclusive against is just as important. And here's what I mean. So let's say the product is Google, right? That you are being asked to promote. Well, if you're exclusive to all technology, that means you are not able to work with, I don't know, Apple or Beats or, Fitbit or, any sort of technology. I mean, technically that could be televisions, that could be refrigerators, that could be microwaves, that can be cars. I mean, what isn't technology nowadays? But if the partnership is truly just about, Google, I don't know, Google phones, let's say, and that's what you're actually promoting, the ideal situation in most instances is to get them to narrow down the exclusivity to just being about phones. Because otherwise, like I always say, I'm happy to have my client be exclusive to the whole category, but that costs a lot more money. So, if you want to have some cost savings here, / just be realistic about what the budget would be, and have the ability, a real possibility for this to go through and come to fruition, I think it's important to be realistic about what the category of exclusivity is. So I always present it like that because I think that it's important to explain your rationale for why you are proposing that you are exclusive to just, narrowing it down to a smaller category or a certain type of product. Don't just state those facts. Like share a little bit of the why. And if it, bonus points if you can explain why it's beneficial for them to do so, i.e. the cost savings. But in addition to the category and really like honing that in, making sure that the price is comparable to, how many other opportunities you're going to be missing out on if you're exclusive to a certain category. Also important is to talk about the length of time. And here is the gotcha that a lot of people fall into. They'll be like, all right, I negotiated it from, a year to 6 months. Fantastic. Look at this great job that I did. And it's the same amount of money. But I always like to tell people, so from when? When does the clock start? Because, if it's 6 months from questionable date, they could push that off for so long. And not being clear, not defining those things are incredibly important because it might have you miss out on other opportunities that you couldn't account for, like you can't plan for because you don't know when the clock starts. So just make sure to define when that exclusivity starts, or you could do it expires no later than X date. Those have been a couple like tips that have really helped me throughout the years. The other thing to keep in mind in terms of like how to negotiate is I just think that people need to humanize the negotiating process a bit more. I'll tell you what I hear. I hear from friends of mine who work at agencies or who work for brands where it almost seems like you're negotiating with a robot. No one wants to negotiate with a robot, you guys. Literally no one. If you don't want AI to take over your job and you're concerned about that, like stop acting like a freaking robot. Because like AI could absolutely negotiate on behalf of your creators. But like, why would your creators hire you and work with you? Because you are not a robot. It's because you are a human being. And you, in doing so, like should infuse a humanity into all of your negotiations. So I like to tell people, ask the other side what they need, what their goals are, where they're falling short, like in their search for creators, like what haven't they been able to find? What haven't they been able to achieve? And set those expectations ahead of time. Build them into the agreement if you can. But I feel like, a little bit of extra upfront work and communication and really expressing that, it's a joint effort here and that it's not just one-sided and you don't feel like defensive of your client. And, people are so much more receptive to that, you guys. People will come back and work with you time and time again if your approach is coming from just more humanity. So, look, these are just a handful of tips in terms of how to be a better negotiator. Also, don't take things personally. That's something that's really taken me a lot of time to hone in on and to like perfect. But I know that when I was representing talent, I defended them so much. And I really took personally when I was given what I considered was a really lowball offer or, a take it or leave it type offer. But, I really do believe this. Sometimes, deals, it's not the right time for it to happen. And, it's just not the right fit for the time. And that's okay. And, I've had some of my like most impressive clients were never afraid of walking away from a deal. And miraculously, as soon as you respectfully said no, thank you, they would come back with all the things that you wanted. So, if there are any tips that I can give you guys, it's just those few things. And the last one might be one of the most important ones, which is, having confidence in walking away and standing by what you believe is a really powerful tool. I do think that, hopefully there is an element of reality in what prices you're quoting and making sure that you're really communicating with the other side. And trust has to be built in order to trust that what they're telling you is accurate and that they're not trying to lowball you, of course. So building those relationships is super important. Communicate with them, add an element of humanity, and have the confidence to walk away. This is a short episode, you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you take something from it. And I want to hear what you guys think too. Like, what's been the hardest, toughest part of negotiating? And what's been some of the best tactics that you use and you try to infuse in all of your negotiations? Do you enjoy it or do you hate it? Let me know, you guys, in the comments on YouTube. Let me know as a comment on our Instagram post, because we post about the podcast every single week on @IamWim. It's wonderful having you guys back here. We also had a lot of you guys share about the show on Instagram mostly because the Spotify Wrapped list came out. So it's so cool hearing that we're in your top 5 podcasts. Like, I'm honored. And we would not be doing this podcast if it wasn't for you guys. So if you wouldn't mind, if you do enjoy the show, share those Spotify Wraps out. It's cool to also see like who you listen to as well. It's interesting for us to see if you listen to us, what other podcasts do you listen to? So share those, tag us on social. We'll totally share them in our stories. And if you enjoy the show, as always, please leave a review. Hope you enjoy it. Have a wonderful week, guys. See you soon. If you enjoyed this episode, we gotta have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at IamWim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we can ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.